There he is. All right, welcome everyone. This is the 5-Star Dispatch podcast brought to you by DFS Army. If you want to learn how to become a DFS pro, go to dfsarmy.com and use promo code AARON, that is AARON, for 20% off. Also, if you want to learn how to become a better sports bettor, then sign up for our Beat the Bookie product, which is an add-on product, by going to dfsarmy.com/bookie-pricing and sign up. As last week, I went 15-6 on Beat the Bookie plays and kind of killed it last week. And we killed it on DFS as Cash Keg, one of our staff, took home a whopping, I think, 15 grand total over the weekend. So it was crazy. Aaron, great to see you. How you doing today?
Good. I'm excited for week 2. Sometimes the week 2s can be a letdown off of like some of the big week 1 games, but I think it's a good slate. I really like the way DraftKings did it this week. They picked there's no game I hate. I'm not crazy about the last game, but I like the slate otherwise.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of interesting storylines of teams that didn't show up last week, and if they show up this week, or teams that exploded last week, whether they can continue that. Always what I hear is that week 2 is harder than week 1 because you have your biases of what the preseason was, and then you have week 1, and so you got to try to figure out what's actually happening.
Yeah, for sure.
And so to recap last week, if this is your first time listening to the podcast, thank you for your listen. But we like to kind of go over what happened last week and discuss this game that we played. So this game where we take turns picking who is going to be the top QB, running back, wide receiver, and a value play. So on Thursday, I had 63 points. I picked Ritter as my QB, Jayshon Corbin as my running back. I had Justin Ross put up 4.3 points at wide receiver, and my value play was Damari Simpkins, who did okay at 8.3 points. And then Aaron came in with 58 points as he had D. 4.0 Mooney at 18.4, and his value piece of Alex Pierce at 7.9. Was there anything that stood out to you kind of on that Thursday slate?
Just like how I was even surprised how little Trevor Lawrence did, or I guess they didn't really need much, but just seeing him out of the picture so much was surprising. I wish the Utah
looked bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Utah game was. I wish that wouldn't have been they're delayed and yeah, so late. BYU definitely got a rough end of the stick. They actually were pretty close in yards, but Utah kind of had a very favorable turnover margin. All right, so I'll kind of skip Friday's game. It seems like that. We kind of talked about a recap. We'll kind of just jump into the slate. So we have 11 games to talk about, the Saturday DraftKings slate. And there's a ton of games that I'm interested in that we talked about kind of briefly at the start of this podcast. So let's just jump in. The first game is West Virginia versus Missouri. Some betting notes. So Missouri opened as a 11-point favorite, and that has ballooned to 14 points, but it's starting to fall to 13 points. So the bettors initially got on Mizzou, didn't really care Wyoming lost, but it started to come back to West Virginia in the past day or so. The total opened at 62.5 and has stayed right around that number. My beat the bookie betting model has Missouri scoring 38 points and West Virginia scoring 27. So it sees a barn burner. Let's start with West Virginia. Aaron, what do you like?
So Austin Kendall, the transfer from Oklahoma, he did all right. He did enough. 27 for 42 for 260 yards, 2 touchdowns. He's a fair play. I'm still trying to figure out. Kenny McCoy wasn't great last week. He was their good running back last year. Tevin Bush is interesting. He's a cheap wide receiver, 4,400. I think he was the most productive offensive player probably for West Virginia. I'm not in love with them, but there's a few interesting pieces, I'd say.
Yeah, I agree. I think Tevin Bush is definitely interesting. The one downside to him, and that I saw, was that he only played 23 snaps last week. And still, is a big play guy. He seems like when he's in the game, they want to get him the ball. So I hope that for last week's game, they kind of see that he is productive and use him to jumpstart that offense and get him more touches. Austin Kendall, like you said, is a transfer. He played well. He played within the system. He did not try to throw the ball deep. He threw just mainly intermediate routes. And in my opinion, that's not going to work against Missouri. They're going to kind of be able to take that away. And in order to pay off his salary at 6,200, he's going to have to throw deep. So my top play is Sam James. Austin Kendall, like I said about deep throws being inaccurate, he had Sam James wide open on 2 possible touchdown passes. Sam James ended up with 6 receptions, about 10 targets, 32 yards. He's priced at $4K. He's one of my favorite value wide receivers in this game. And the one thing I would say is that anyone who saw this game before and saw that West Virginia was playing James Madison, they only won 20-13. One of the writers on The Athletic had them on upset alert and actually thought James Madison would go in and beat them. So it's not as big of a shock as let's say Tennessee losing at home to Georgia State. So I just want to kind of let that out. Let's jump to the other side. Give me your take on Mizzou.
So Mizzou lost on the road in Laramie, Wyoming last week. Kelly Bryant was very good in his first start with Missouri. 400 yards. He's priced up to 7,700, which is a lot, but Mizzou has one of the higher implied team totals on this slate. I don't know if I could go there for 7,700. I'm more interested in the wide receivers here. His tight end, Albert O. He's a really interesting player. He had 72 yards last week. He actually caught a pass from Bryant last week, ran 14 yards, and then hurdled a defender. So he's a super athletic tight end prospect. He's only 5,200, which I think is fair. It's I like him as a cash play. And then from a GPP perspective, Cam Scott right below him in salary at 4,400. He's sort of one of the big play potential guys. So those are my 2 favorite plays on Missouri.
Yeah, I agree with you. Actually, Missouri is one of my favorite offenses to stack, and I do plan on having Kelly Bryant in a lot of my lineups. Just going through all the other games, you can find excuses not to play a quarterback, and this is kind of a Justin Fields on a discount, where he can beat you in the run, and they're supposed to put 38 points. I expect him to do a lot of them and be responsible for most of them, whether it is through his legs or passing the ball. And so I definitely like him at 7,700. I think looking at their last week game, they should have won that game so easily. They outgained Wyoming 537 to 389. They had 28 first downs and gave 16 to Wyoming. They absolutely should have won that game, and it could depress ownership on this offense a little bit this week. So I would definitely load up on Kelly Bryant. Their top running back, Tyler Beatty, seems to be a reliable pass catcher out of the backfield, and he caught a lot of Kelly Bryant's first balls in the first half. And I would definitely go back to that as a possible running back play at 5,900. And then at wide receiver, I do like your tight end play of I didn't have him originally written down. The guy I had written down with Jonathan Johnson, kind of their top play there. He saw a ton of targets. He was kind of the security blanket to Bryant in the first half, and I could definitely see him having a big game. And I actually personally would play him in cash versus your O play. So moving on to the Vanderbilt-Purdue game. Some betting notes about this game. Purdue opened as a 9-point favorite, but has dropped to 7. Now that bettors have been going after Vanderbilt, they see their game against Georgia as a better loss, even though Purdue should have beaten Nevada. The total opened at 55.5, but has moved up to 56. It's not very much there. My Beat the Bookie betting model has Purdue scoring 30 points and Vanderbilt scoring 25. So let's jump over to Vanderbilt. What do you like from their offense?
I like the pricing on what I would call their big three. Keyshawn Vaughn, the running back, is super talented. Started out his career at Illinois. I'm still skeptical about Purdue's defense. Nevada, who played Purdue last week, they had 5.2 yards per play with a freshman quarterback, Strong, and Mountain West O-line. And so obviously, Vandy's a step up in talent from Nevada last week. So Vaughn at 6,100, that's a very fair price to me. I like him in all formats. And then the receivers, we have a discount. Kalijah Lipscomb, he was all SEC last year. I don't know if he was first. He was either first team or second team, but he started out slow against Georgia, kind of understandably. So everyone's kind of priced down from the Georgia game last week. And the third guy is Jared Pickney, another tight end at 4,400. So all three of those Vandy players are in play for me.
Yep, I agree. My notes are pretty much written the exact same way. One of the things that stood out to me from reading a lot of the beat reporters was that the center really struggled at hiking the ball. There were times where it would go over Neal's head. There were times where it threw it at his feet. And so that's something definitely to watch for, as they have liked to start at the game throwing kind of the timing throws, throwing the 4-yard slants. And if he's still doing that, it could really slow down that offense. Keyshawn Vaughn, like you said, great play, had 4.9 yards per carry against Georgia's D. I expect, even though Purdue was able to hold Nevada in check on the ground game before the fourth quarter collapse, I do see him as in all across, cash, GP, wherever you want to play him. He's definitely going to get touches, and he's going to see yards. What of the things that worries me about Neal and his wide receivers is that the offensive line has had a ton of injuries. So all the starters from last year that were coming back, they all were injured last week. And it's still up in the air whether they're going to go this week. And so I could see if they miss that Purdue could get some decent pass rush. And they were actually able to hold Carson Strong to, very little yardage in the first half before they became horribly turnover prone, losing. And so moving over to the other side, what do you like about Purdue?
I still like the same targets. Quarterback Elijah Sindelar. He's QB5 on this slate, but I still feel it's appropriate. It's 7,500. I don't love the price, but I mean, this offense is going to be one to reckon with. Last year, they averaged 39 pass attempts. So who's ever at quarterback for Purdue is always in play. I still feel like Rondell Moore, I'd play him at like 9K. So I'm happy to play him at 8,100. And then David Bell's kind of a third guy I'd have in my more of a GPP play. He's a freshman receiver. He scored a touchdown in the opener, and not a cash play though, but definitely someone to put in your receiver pool.
Yeah, I agree with you on all fronts. I was very impressed by Sindelar throwing the ball.
Yeah.
If you are a Beat the Bookie subscriber, you know that I put a bet on Nevada plus 11, and I was sweating it during that first half because I thought Sindelar was just throwing bombs. Rondell Moore was scoring at will. And then we saw a weird thing in that a sophomore wide receiver got gassed. Rondell Moore was playing every single down on offense. He was doing every single special teams possession, and he just got gassed. And so I'm very intrigued to see how they utilize him this week to kind of allow him to be able to play throughout the game. But let's not bury the lead here. I think Sindelar is a great play at 7,500. He's going to make my small quarterback player pool. I think he is going to see probably 300 plus passing yards in this game. And he's got some stud wide receivers and tight ends to throw to. Rondell Moore, 8,100. Bryson Hopkins at 5,400. Ahmad Anderson, who caught 7 balls last week for 80 yards, I think, at 4,500. And then, like you said, Devin Bell. He has weapons galore, and they're going to throw it a ton. So definitely have a lot of this offense in your lineups. So dropping down to Syracuse versus Maryland. This game is very interesting from a betting perspective. So Syracuse, which is ranked, I think they're ranked 21st in the nation in the AP poll. They opened as 2.5 point favorites on the road, but the line completely flipped, and Maryland is now a 2-point favorite. The total moved up from 56 to 58. My Beat the Bookie betting model has Syracuse scoring 31 points and Maryland scoring 29. So let's start with Syracuse. What can you tell me about last week against Liberty, as well as kind of what you see going forward?
Yeah, the line movement was very interesting. To me, Syracuse is a significantly better team. I still see them as maybe, if not for Wake Forest, I see Syracuse as like the second or third best offense. So I was surprised with the line movement. I like the quarterback Tommy DeVito a lot. I don't know if, in general, I don't think I'll be playing him on this slate. He wasn't effective, really, but I think he'll get better over time. So he's someone I want to monitor, but I won't be playing him. My favorite play is Mo Neal, their running back at 5K. He's a senior. He's been around, and he was able to win the starting job there. And I guess for the same reason, the receivers I don't feel like I can trust yet. And they have good receivers. I just feel like most of Syracuse I want to monitor and see how they do against a Big Ten team in Maryland, or a Big Ten team.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you on everything. I mean, I think we have the same notes. Tommy DeVito, he did struggle, but he struggled a lot last year backing up Dungy. And so I don't know what we kind of expected out of his first 2 games as the full-time starter. And so I definitely would not go to the passing game. Mo Neal is the play on this team. At $5,000 on DraftKings, he is going to be leaned on to kind of jumpstart the offense. And Maryland's run D was a lot worse than their pass D last year. So I definitely see Mo being a big part of this offense and being a solid value at 5K. So jumping on to the other side of the ball so clearly Maryland did not impress you by beating Howard 79-0. Why didn't they impress you? Was Howard a second-grade JV team?
Well, I do like Josh Jackson, the quarterback. That was a huge pickup for Maryland. He was a credible starter back at Virginia Tech. So I don't know. It's hard to. I'm not buying them as a team yet, but I feel like Josh Jackson's solid. I don't think I'd play him today, or I mean Saturday, because I respect Syracuse. But yeah, I want to see how he does against a better team first.
Yeah, I'm actually, he is going to make my player pool. Jackson he was a stud at Virginia Tech. You kind of know what you're going to get out of him. He's this dual threat guy. He completes 60% of his throws or more. He's played against real opponents. Syracuse's D is for real. They forced 4 turnovers last week. They give 1 yard per carry. You have negative yards, but I'm not going to count sacks as rushing yards. So 1 yard per carry. It was an astounding performance by that defense, especially stopping the run. And so, do I have any interest in Anthony McFarland? No. In terms of wide receivers, during Josh Jackson's playing time, he targeted Dante Demas 6 times. And at 5,700, he was kind of the big explosive threat last year. And I could see in this game where Syracuse is wanting to kind of play that aggressive run-stopping defense, they could get burned over the top. And so I might have some Demas Jackson stacks, especially with Jackson being 6,500. I think that's very low, even though he's going up against a very tough defense.
Yeah, that's a fair call.
So then let's move on to a game that I expect to just be the worst game on this slate. We have Army traveling to the Big House to take on Michigan. So this line opened and has stayed around Michigan being favored by 23, and the total has stayed roughly around 47. My betting model has Michigan scoring 35 points, and Army scoring a measly 13. So why don't we start with Army? Give me your takes on the rushing offense versus the Michigan defense.
So Army, as we all know, plays the triple option. Kelvin Hopkins, I like most weeks. He's been priced up a little. I don't love the price at 6,300 against a good team like Michigan with only 2 implied touchdowns. That's scary, but he'll probably account for both the touchdowns. So he does come with a decent floor relative to the competition. He would be the only guy I'd go for on the Army side.
Yeah, I think what I saw from Army in my notes, I found it's funny. The coach is very honest. In a news conference, he said, "Everyone on Michigan is better than us."
Yeah.
Which is just insane to say as your players hear that and they just go, "Well, thank you for that confidence. You tell me I suck. Got it." In terms of fantasy, I agree. I think Hopkins is normally a play. They run the ball so much that is Slomka. He is the leading rusher behind Hopkins, and he was injured last week. And so he's currently at 3,400 and could come in and possibly come off injury and give you that solid floor of like 15, 20 carries, decent chunk of yardage, even though Michigan's defense is very solid. So let's jump over to, so Michigan, and why I think this is just going to be an absolute blowout, is they hired a defensive analyst named Nate Woody, who came from being Georgia Tech's defensive coordinator and also spent time at Georgia Southern. So he has a ton of knowledge of the triple option or an option attack, and I don't see Army being able to fool him very much. So that's kind of my take on Army. We'll kind of shift the focus to Michigan. What do you like?
One caveat about Shea Patterson, I don't like him. He was actually examined for an injury at the half, and then Dylan McCaffrey got a lot of rushing attempts in the second half because they didn't want Shea to get hit. So I'd be careful with Shea Patterson, especially if we don't hear more. I don't think it's a good omen if you get examined for an injury and then they don't have to give a lot of information in college football about a player's health. So my top play is Zach Charbonnet. He's a true freshman who grabbed the starting role. Michigan starting running backs have been a good cash play in the Harbaugh era. So at 5,300, with the total being what it is, I really like him. He's easily my favorite play. An interesting secondary target would be Donovan Peoples-Jones if he's healthy. Right now, don't play him because he missed last game. But just monitor it because at 5,800, that's a very good discount from Nico Collins. So Peoples-Jones is more of a guy to monitor, and then I really like Charbonnet, the starting running back for 5,300.
Yeah, that. So we're gonna disagree a little bit here.
Oh.
Yeah, so I also don't like Shea. I think that he is not going to see a ton of looks as I think that they can easily beat Army on the ground. Yeah. Last week, Army gave up to Rice 6 yards per carry against their horrible running attack. And
Yeah, that was
so I don't really
surprising.
see. It was surprising, and we'll obviously get into that. Oh, we won't get into that later because we're not talking about Wake Forest Rice. I like Wake Forest a lot in that game. Anyway, so I don't see them needing to kind of pass the ball at all, and so I'm not really going to target the passing game. From looking at, so I went back and I read the play-by-play. Zach Charbonnet got the first 2 carries of the game, and then Christian Turner came in with like 10. So I'm not sure if right. So Charbonnet started the game, but he didn't get the majority of the carries, and
Yeah.
so I would be worried that people are going to jump to Charbonnet is that starter, where in reality you can pivot to Christian Turner at 4,200, and he could possibly get the bulk load of the carries early on.
Yeah, there's a lot of good mid-range backs.
Mm-hmm. No, but I do enjoy. I do like the Charbonnet call. I think he is a very explosive back and will make me eat my words come Saturday when he runs 80 yards to the house in the first play, as they usually do. All right, so let's move on to Rutgers versus Iowa. So some betting notes in this game. So Iowa opened as a 20-point favorite, and then normal bettors kind of jumped on Rutgers, seeing that they absolutely demolished UMass, and the line went down to Iowa being only favored by 18. But it has moved back over the last 24 to 36 hours to 20 and a half. The total opened at 51.5, but has moved down to 49, so the under's been hit pretty hard there. Beat I love Iowa in spot. I told my Beat the Bookie subscribers to grab this at 19, so there's already value on that. Rutgers tore up a bad defense last week, headed by Pacheco and Blackshear running the ball. I don't see them being able to do that against Iowa, and it's going to force McLean Carter to throw the ball when they're actually expecting him to throw the ball, and I don't see that going well. So now that you all have my opinion on what this game is going to be, let's throw it over Aaron. So what do you like from Rutgers?
An interesting note about Rutgers is that they threw for 300 yards for their first time since 2015.
Mm-hmm.
So I think McLean Carter can have a few good games. So I think I would like table him, but not use him against Iowa. Iowa's probably a top 3 defense in the Big Ten. So Pacheco, I don't mind putting in your pool again for 5,100, but that's about it with just the like 12-ish implied points.
Mm-hmm. You don't like Melton?
Oh yeah, he's interesting. What's his price again? I'm trying to.
5,300.
Yeah, that's. I mean, they'll probably be down and passing a lot, so I don't hate that. Oh, and yeah, I have some more interest on the Iowa side.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess for Rutgers, for me, Bo Melton's the only play for me. Iowa gave up 2.4 yards per carry last week to Miami of Ohio, and that was seen as a bad performance for a lot of their beat reporters. So I expect them to come in and absolutely dominate the offensive line, forcing Rutgers to throw. his often go in time they need. I can see him getting 10 plus catches again and easily pay off a really low 5,300. So flipping over to Iowa, who do you like?
Actually, Stanley, the quarterback, 5,900 is very reasonable. He's never been so many people have run a roster, but he's always usually pretty reliable. He's been a multi-year starter. So I'm comfortable with the $5,900 price tag. They have a good running back, Mekhi Sargent. So Iowa averaged just 3.95 yards per carry in 2018. And then I know it was Miami of Ohio last week, but they averaged 5.2 yards per carry. Sargent himself emerged as the starting running back late last year. So I do like his. I do think he's going to be the bell cow running back of this offense. And at receiver, Smith Marset for 4,300. That's a very reasonable price. Those are my three favorite plays.
Yep, I agree with. I don't think I'm going to put Stanley in my quarterback player pool. I think he is definitely safe, and if you needed a value quarterback, he is somewhere to go. But I would rather pay up to Jackson, given the dual threat at 600 more. I do love Sargent. I think he is a stud running back. And what I always love to see is running backs who catch the ball. When you're looking at DraftKings, you get that 1 point per reception, and the guys that can be the check down from the quarterback, that's easy points, that's easy money, and Sargent did that a lot last week. And so I definitely love him. And then Smith Marset, you said it, I see him getting a lot of passes going his way. So we're totally in agreement there. Moving on to Cincinnati versus Ohio State. I don't understand why teams decide to challenge their lesser group of 5 FCS teams in their state. It just has a narrative of bad stuff. But the Buckeyes opened as 17-point favorites, but has moved that to them being only 15.5-point favorites in this game. Tons of action going to Cincinnati. The total has moved down from 55 to 53.5, which indicates kind of a lower scoring ball game. My BeatBookie betting model has Ohio State scoring 37 points and Cincinnati scoring 21. About Cincinnati's offense.
So they have good players. Desmond Ridder and Michael Warren are as good of a backfield as you'll find anywhere. I don't know how much I want to attack them here. Alec Pierce is probably my favorite again at 4,000. Ohio State had a bunch of trouble with receivers getting open and allowing big plays. I think that Ritter's a much better quarterback than FAU's quarterback last week, so they're going to be in for a test here. I don't know if Ridder will be in my pool at 6,700, but or Warren with the amount of cheap running backs, so probably Pierce or DeGuara, the tight end, but not a whole lot of interest here.
Yes, so as I stated earlier, anytime these smaller schools play bigger schools in their state, and you get kids that grew up in the state and never got an offer from the big school, the team they rooted for their entire life, they get up for those games.
Yeah.
And Michael Warren is from Toledo, Ohio. It's not Columbus, but grew up a Buckeye fan, never got an offer, and he's my favorite play from Cincinnati. Even though UCLA decided to absolutely sell out to stop him last week and make Ritter pass the ball over the top to an Alec Pierce, he still had 26 carries for 92 yards and a score. It's not a great line, but he had 26 carries against a defense that was just set out to stop him. So clearly you can see Cincinnati's game plan is to run the ball. Like I said, run the heck out of the ball on our last podcast. So I see him getting a ton of touches, and I normally will take the person who has a chip on their shoulder and wants to show up in Columbus, Ohio at the Horseshoe.
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah, and then I also like Ritter and Alec Pierce. I think Alec Pierce will make my player pool. Ritter probably will not. I think Ohio State is a solid defense and is an average defense, but I think their game is on the ground, and I don't think Ritter is going to pay off the ceiling that you need for him. So moving over to Ohio State, is Justin Fields a core play for you?
Probably a cash core.
Mm-hmm.
But I think he's going to be super popular. But yeah, he just brings such a high floor. The total's at 37, so he might not get like 5 touchdowns again, but I can't see him getting less than 3.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I like him a lot. I'm interested to see what Dobbins does. I don't know if I'll play him, but I wouldn't be surprised if he had a big game.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like there's so many running backs I like below, like $1,000 cheaper and less, that it's hard to justify Dobbins. Yeah, those two would be my primary targets. I think people will chase the tight end for Ohio State who got 2 touchdowns last week, but I don't know. Ruckert, he's 4,800, but I don't think that's sustainable.
Yeah, so I agree. I think Justin Fields is a core play for me. I think he brings that dual threat that Ohio State loves. And one thing that I really just absolutely hate about Ohio State is they play like UCF. They will keep their starters in the entire game and run up the score, even if they play a Power 5 conference. They don't need to do that.
Yeah.
If they win all their games, they'll make the playoff. They're not like UCF where you need to win 100-0. But that is just the Ohio State way. And so I see Justin Fields, even if they get up big, even if they kind of just run over Cincinnati's hopes and dreams, he'll stay in. He'll still pick up some points. I do plan on fading Dobbins at 7,300. Cincinnati's run D, like I said last week, was ranked 6th last year. They did a decent job against UCLA. They gave up some big plays, but efficiency-wise, they stopped them pretty strongly. And I don't think he'll be able to pay off that price. From what I noticed about Ruckert, as that's the big mystery, is that he caught a touchdown. He had 5 targets in the first quarter in their game last week, and he did catch one of them for a touchdown, and he got a touchdown later in the ball game. And so when I was looking at DraftKings, I was looking at possible plays. One thing that stood out to me was looking at his description, and his description said exactly what you just said. it said he saw some late game action and caught some on the first. And so I do think he will be involved in the offense. I'd be a sucker who chases it. All right, moving on. So we have a game I find extremely interesting, yet am extremely infuriated. We have South Florida taking on Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech opened as a 5.5-point favorite, but it has increased to 6.5 points. The total has also increased from 59 to 62, with sharp money coming in on the over. My Beat the Bookie betting model has Georgia Tech scoring 34 points and scoring 27. Both of these teams saw it last week. Let's start with USF. What do you like about that team?
So the Johnny Ford news last Friday was really unfortunate happening after lock. Unfortunately, in college football, there isn't really injury reporting standards like the NFL. So Johnny Ford should be back and starting. He's 5,800, and I think he's listed as a running back, but he's really a slot receiver in the new offense. So he could potentially be a really good GPP play with the PPR format. He's easily my favorite guy. St. Felix is still cheap at 4,700. He could easily pay that off. Other than that, I don't know if I want to give up a quarterback spot for Barnett. He's pretty inconsistent, but it is a decent total.
Yeah, for me, USF just ran into an absolute chainsaw in Wisconsin. Yeah. And they had some big plays that just went through receivers' hands early in that game, where if those had been actual catches, we don't know where the final score would have landed. There's just some massive plays, and it was raining that day, and people's gloves got wet. Excuses, but I think that the offense has potential still. They seem to put up a lot of points last year, and most of the offense comes back. Barnett at 6,200, I think, is a decent play, especially if you think about Georgia Tech last week. They gave up over 50 points to Clemson. Defense didn't look that great. They had some good corner play, but the secondary beyond that was pretty much a mess. Jordan Conkright could take advantage of a defense that allowed Eddie Ian to have 17 yards per carry. I think he could see some additional time at 5,600. He's definitely in play there. Like you said, Johnny Ford, he's a 5'5", little guy. He should just run past you. You lose him. He's a Darren Sproles type back. Absolutely love him. And then Randall St. Felix going back to that well. Big play guy, big guy just in general. And I could see him having a big game, kind of stretching that defense over the top. So moving over to Georgia Tech, this team infuriates me still. They just eat in my nightmares. Jeff Collins, I just straight up hate him. But we have to find who is going to be the starting quarterback, because this team is going to score over 30 points this week. What do you say, Aaron?
Yeah, that's definitely the most surprising implied team total of the week. So Georgia Tech is transitioning away from the option to a pro style spread. The problem with their offense right now is they don't have the personnel to handle a balanced attack. So with this inherited roster, it's still going to be a run-heavy offense for the foreseeable future. I like Jordan Mason a lot because they're still going to have to run the ball, and he's probably their best weapon on the team right now. The three quarterbacks that they're rotating are unplayable, and they'll have to decide on one soon. Yeah, he's my favorite play here.
Yeah, I completely agree. I read that exact same piece where Jeff Collins said that they're going to run the ball still, which kind of upsetted me when I first started watching them, and I was ready for a play action pass, and I watched their first snap, and it was the triple option, and I was like, what is this team? I thought it was going to be something different. Why did you fire the pass guy? I don't know what this is. But anyway, I think the only scenario is that if they give Graham the start, they won't tell us because they're going to do the above the line system. So they're not going to tell us who's coming out. So if they somehow have a change of heart and they say, Graham, you're our guy, I think that brings in wide receivers into the play. So I think Amarian Brown at 3,900 and Tyler Davis at 3,200 DraftKings dollars are both in play if they decide to go with a passing QB. But I expect them to go on the ground, and therefore I'm not going to touch any of the quarterbacks. And my only play, like you said, is Jordan Mason. But it's super annoying. They're expected to score 33 points, and we have one play. Screw you, Jeff. Okay, over to Clemson versus Texas A&M. This is the best game, actually the one I think everyone is going to watch on this slate. Clemson open and is holding on to a 17.5 betting favorite. The over has been absolutely pounded, moving the total from 61 to 64. My Beat the Bookie betting model has Clemson scoring 36 points and A&M scoring 19. It's a little bit lower than the total has moved. And then one last thing I want to say before moving it over to you. Last year's meeting, Clemson won 28-26. In total, both teams passed for 730 yards and rushed for 180. So now I'll move it over to you and talk about Texas A&M.
So Kellen Mond had an awesome first game against Texas State. I don't know, he's a dark horse Heisman candidate. I think I'm really excited to see him against Clemson, the ultimate barometer. I think him and Lawrence are going to be interesting pivots off of Fields. I think people are still reluctant to play Lawrence, but this is like the one time I feel like where it's not going to be a blowout. Mm-hmm. So anyway, for the Texas A&M side, Corbin's a beast. Even with going up against Clemson, I still think 7,000's fair. And then the receiver I like, if you're going to stack Mond, is Jamin Osborne. He went for 20 DraftKings points. And it looks like he's going to be a big part of the offense and the go-to receiver here. So, yeah, those three are definitely stackable.
Yes, so for me, I'm actually just pulling up one thing real quick that is going to help me. So Kellen Mond, like you said, the camp has said that they want to get him in the Heisman picture. I think they're all well, and I think he is likely to do that again. And he is another name that I'm adding to my quarterback player pool. Given last year's game, though, and like I said before, I moved it over to you. Both teams combined for 730 passing yards and only 180 rushing yards. So if I go back to their game last year, Travion Williams, who absolute stud, had 17 carries for 31 yards. So as much as I love Corbin and I played a lot of him last Thursday, I will probably fully fade him at that price. I think that both of these teams are going to try to get their Heisman quarterbacks the shining moment. Clemson might do it with Etienne. I'm going to take a big risk in that game. We can talk about that coming up. In terms of, but I do plan on fading Corbin. In terms of receivers with Mond, there are 4 receivers that came back from last year. So Osborne, Quandre Davis, Kendrick Rogers, and Cameron Buckley all came back from last year's team. And 2 receivers last week stood out. So Quandre Davis, like 7 for, I think, 100 yards. And then Osborne at 7 catches for 80 yards. I think they both had a touchdown. So they're both priced in that kind of mid 7K range. Versus Kendrick Rogers, who was actually hurt but still caught 1 ball, and Cameron Buckley, who didn't do very much. I think the way I'm going to play it is to take a chance on Rogers and Buckley. Rogers actually, in the Clemson game last year, had 120 receiving yards. And so I think that playing kind of those lower priced guys that did not play well last week or were injured or were sick or however it may be is kind of the way that I want to attack A&M. So
for Clemson?
Yeah.
For Clemson, I like, as I mentioned a little bit, I think this is Trevor Lawrence's biggest game of the year, so I'm really excited to see him, and I definitely want him in my player pool, because I think the big narrative going into college football DFS is, oh, he's barely going to play, don't play him. But if there's one game to buck that trend, I think it's this week. So I guess just hoping for a market correction of Trevor Lawrence having the big game when people aren't on him, or I'm sure he'll still be popular given the game, but I feel like I don't want to miss this opportunity with a close game. So I definitely want to go back to Lawrence and Ross, even though Ross wasn't effective in the first game. I'll take a shot there.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. I'm going to fade Travis Etienne in this game and hope it really doesn't just bite me in the butt. It could. He had 17 yards per carry last week, but going back, and I think that this is going to be a quarterback showdown. And I am like you. Lawrence is in my quarterback player pool, and Ross I'm going to have plenty of, given that most people are going to see the 4.3 points last week, see the price tag around 70, I think it's 7,300, and they're not going to press his name. They're going to go to T. Higgins. They're going to go somewhere else, or go up to Rondell Moore, or go somewhere else. And that's going to make his ownership a lot less, and it's really easy for him to stretch that defense and to easily make up his salary and post 30 plus points.
Yeah.
So moving on to what I didn't know was one of the biggest rivalries in sports. We have Nebraska traveling to Boulder to take on the Buffaloes. So Nebraska opened and is currently holding a 4-point favorite as a 4-point favorite. The total has stayed around 65 as well. My Beat the Bookie betting model has Nebraska scoring 29 points and Colorado scoring 28. So what do you like from Nebraska here? You going back to the Adrian Martinez well?
Yeah, so to me, I think, I mean, I was just as disappointed as anyone. I mean, is kind of mind-boggling to get a Scott Frost-led team and Adrian Martinez, like that combination being so bad was a little mind-boggling. The whole offense was super ineffective. Like they only averaged 2.2 yards rushing per carry. So just a terrible day all around. Obviously they won, but just from an offensive production perspective, just a terrible day. So Frost this week kind of called out Martinez, saying it starts with the quarterback. He's got to be the hardest working guy at practice, and that Martinez never found his rhythm. Mm-hmm. So one of the things just with DFS in general is you can't get caught playing yesterday fantasy sports. And to me, at 7K, I want to go back to the well here and play Martinez. Everyone on Nebraska is cheap. I don't know if I'll pick on the running backs again, but to me, Spielman and Wan'Dale Robinson are in play again. I love both their 4,700 and is just too cheap for Spielman.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I absolutely love Nebraska's offense in this game. Have you gone back and watched Adrian Martinez injury versus Colorado last year?
No, I haven't.
You should, because they are angry. Nebraska's team. So basically, what happened was Adrian Martinez on a run play gets tackled, and basically one Colorado goes and while he's on the ground tries to take off his head, and the one that is holding his legs like does an MMA wrestling move where he pulls the leg while his head is lodged on his knee, just trying to break his knee in half. Basically, it's absolutely disgusting to watch, and I agree. I think Martinez is going to be up and ready for this game. I think this entire team is going to be up and ready to kind of go into Colorado and put up some points. They should have put up a lot against South Alabama. That wasn't a good defense, and they got a lot of flack from it. And I think that there are a lot of factors that are going to contribute to a strong offensive performance. In terms of running back, Maurice Washington would be kind of where I want to go with my money.
Oh wow, that's really cheap. They're all cheap.
They are all super cheap. But what happened was, so Maurice Washington currently undergoing pornography charges, and his court case is still ongoing. And Nebraska decided to say, okay, well, we'll play him while he's on trial. And so they sat him, they suspended him for the first half of the game last week. And that allowed Dedrick Mills, I think, was the running back at that time, to start the game. He had a horrible day. And then as soon as halftime hit, Maurice Washington saw all the carries. So I think at his price at 3,700, you're going to get 15 to 20 carries, let's call it.
Yeah.
And at $3,700, that's kind of my favorite cheap play on the entire slate. I was talking to, we have a guy in Beat the Bookie who loves the Huskers. He lives in South Dakota, absolutely in love with them. Wan'Dale Robinson is supposed to be, in terms of Nebraska's eyes, the next Rondale Moore type guy. And so they used him a ton. Every coach raves about him, and so I'm sure they're going to use him in the run and in the pass. So those kind of be my three main targets, as well as Spielman. And their tight end Stoll, who's 3,600. Everything's cheap here, and they're supposed to score 30 points, 30-plus points. And that's, everything's cheap. Everything's easy to stack up, get those points. So basically play Nebraska. So let's move over to Colorado. What's your take on that offense?
So Montez has always been pretty effective. Last year in the first leg of the series, he went for 331 with 3 touchdowns against Nebraska. And you can't mention Montez without talking about Chenault, who he was okay last week, but he had 177 yards a year ago versus Nebraska. Nixon's pretty good. Nixon's better than what he showed the other day, and Fontenot, I think, is a fair price again. 6,300's fair. It's definitely more expensive than when he was 4,900 last week, but Colorado's had a string of good running backs. I like him. He's not a priority, but still a good play.
Yeah, I agree with all you said. Chenault had a down game for his standards last week, and I really hope that depresses ownership a little bit so that I can grab more than my fair share of him. Fontenot, 6,300, absolutely dominant last week, and it seems like he is clearly their bell cow back, and you'll want to get some exposure there. I don't think Montez is going to make my player pool this week. Game, Connecticut. So Illinois opened as a 20-point favorite, which has gone up to being a 21-point favorite.
Kegs boys.
The total has moved down from 62 to 59. My model has Illinois scoring the most points on this entire slate at 40 points, and UConn scoring 22 points. So before we get to the highest scoring offense on the slate, let's talk about UConn for a little bit.
So UConn, they have a really good running back combination. I'd probably go there first. I know it's not a very high total for UConn, but Mensah and Tompkins are kind of their 1-2 punch. Everything's kind of going to go through these guys. So if you're using pieces from this game, it's one of these two guys. That's all of my interest in UConn right now.
That's all mine too. They ran the ball 60 times last week in their 24-21 win over Wagner, who I counted all of the receiving votes. They are the 50th ranked FCS team. So quality win there for the Connecticut Huskies. Their game plan is to run the ball. Monash ran 36 times last week for 144 yards and a score. Yeah, that's going to be where they go. And Illinois gave up 1.7 yards per carry last week to Akron, who is a better team than UConn. I don't really know how UConn is going to score many points, so I'm probably just going to fade the entire offense. Let's move on to Illinois. What do you like?
Brandon Peters, who started some games for Michigan in 2017, he was really effective versus Akron. 4 total touchdowns. I like him. He's definitely talented, and you have to respect the 40-point potential implied team total. The best play could potentially be Reggie Corbin. So Mike Epstein, this is like terrible news, but he's out for the 3rd straight season. And Corbin was very good last year. He was, I think, 3rd team All Big Ten. And if right now he has a Q tag on DraftKings, if we get any word that he's in, like he might be one of my highest owned guys. That's just too cheap.
Yeah.
So he's my favorite potential target, and then Travion Sidney, who's a USC transfer. He's a good target at 4,200 also.
Yeah, so it seems like there is a large transfer portal that links people from Southern California to Champaign, Illinois.
Yeah.
Patiku had an amazing game on the defensive line. Josh Matterbebe was a great tight end addition to the Illini. And then, like you said, Trevon Sidney also had a good game. Yeah, this team put up 42 points on Akron, and I think all of them happened in 3 quarters. This team came out just absolutely on fire last week, and implied team totals expect them to do the same thing, and they're priced down. DK got the algorithm wrong. I don't know where this is right. Brandon Peters at 6,400 should be 7,400. I mean, there's clear value on Peters. Corbin 4,400 is a joke. Brandon Peters' favorite target in the game was Smalling at 4K, and then a Matterbebe at 3,400. And then also there's a guy named Stampley who is min-priced at 3K, who was targeted a few times. This team is going to score 40-plus points in this game, or 5-6 touchdowns, and they need to go around. And you have everyone besides the quarterback under 5K. So I'm going to have plenty of this offense, and like you, if Corbin is for sure in, he is going to see 20-plus carries, and I'll likely have over 70%.
Cool.
So let's move on to the last game on the slate. We have a snooze fest in Southern California. We have UCLA against San Diego State University. So UCLA opened as a 6.5-point favorite, and that has ballooned to them being an 8-point favorite now, and a total of state steady around 45.5. Has UCLA scoring 8 points and it's scoring 23. So do you think that DTR is going to come back off of his shaky game?
I'm not sure. I still feel like I need to see more. I think Kelly being back will help him.
Is he back?
It said he practiced fully on Monday. And he has a problem
all of last week.
Yeah. I don't know. If Kelly's not back, he's screwed. But yeah, I still think he has a lot of potential, but I'm not gonna play him. So I'm interested in monitoring him. And then for the San Diego State side, they have a running back, Jordan Bird. I think he's a sophomore this year. He's cheap. He's 3,200. I'm interested to see if he picks up for Juwan Washington, who wasn't effective. So yeah, mostly this game, I'm just interested in monitoring and seeing what comes out of this game versus actually playing anyone.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think San Diego State kind of started the reverse. I think UCLA sold out to stop Michael Warren last week, and they're going to do the exact same thing against San Diego State to stop Juwan. So I don't really see him paying off 7,100. I do like Jordan Bird. I think that is a good pick. I didn't have it written down, so I'm definitely going to research that further. Looking at UCLA, so two guys, so Joshua Kelly and Theo Howard, both had full pads on during the game last week, and neither one saw a snap. I don't know Chip Kelly is keeping this under wraps. My venture guess is that there was some discipline reason that they missed the game, and he is not going to tell us. And there could be, come this weekend, that it was not just a 1-game suspension, but a 2-game suspension. So out of sheer annoyance or being terrified at Chip Kelly, I would not touch them, even though I think Theo Howard would be a good GBP player, given that he was a beast last year. San Diego State was a top-ranked defense stopping the run last year, so I don't think Kelly, even if he played, Demetric Felton was not priced up very much. He is now 4,500, and if Kelly does miss the game again, he'll see 25 carries because it's what happened against Cincinnati, and that could be a place to go for that offense. Awesome. So now let's get into our game to wrap things up. So that was 11 games. We're at about a little bit over 75 minutes. Let's get to the game. So the game is basically we will take turns naming a QB, running back, wide receiver, and play under 4K on DraftKings that we think is going to score the most points. This is a snake order draft. I will give Aaron the option to pick quarterback first or second. If he picks second, he can pick running back first, and that's how he'll snake through. So, Aaron, what would you like to take?
I'll take quarterback first.
Okay. Who are you picking?
I'll double down and take Martinez.
Oh, okay. I am going to take Kelly Bryant as my top QB.
Good choice.
For running back, I got to pull up DraftKings now. Wow, I really don't like a lot of the top guys at running back. I am going to take just because I do think he will see a large workload. I'm going to take Fontenot of Colorado.
I'll play it safe and take Etienne.
Good pick. All right. Who's your pick for wide receiver?
Wait, do you go first or do I, since
you do?
I got quarter.
Exactly.
Oh. I'll take Moore again.
Okay. I'll take Laviska. And then my sleeper pick is I'm going to take Maurice Washington from Nebraska.
Yeah, it's a good pick. So under 4K.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't give you much time to prepare that one.
No. Let's see. I'll go with Overton again. Let's see.
Yeah, I saw him at 3,900, and I was like, oh no. Oh no, he's still on there. Wow. Yeah, that's a great pick. I did not think that they would price in that little. I thought they would learn their lesson. All right, so we have our game. We'll kind of recap that next week, and good luck to you, sir.
All right,
do you have any final thoughts you want to share with the crowd?
No, the soft running back pricing is really nice. I really like the under 6,500 crop of running backs. I'll be living in that range a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I agree. Yep. So thank you guys for listening. And again, check out DFS Army and the add-on product Beat the Bookie for all your DFS and sports betting needs. We will see you guys next time.